Hello, this video is part 3 in the series of video demos covering the Dell Compellent FS8600 NAS appliance. In the previous video, we covered some of the identity management options available to the FS8600, as well as demoing the steps to create a NAS volume, CIFS and NFS shares, as well as defining a user-based quota policy. In this video, I will cover the FluidFS-based snapshot feature of the FS8600. The FS8600 provides file-level snapshot capability. These are point-in-time copies of the NAS volume at the time the snapshot was taken. Snapshots allow for data protection and rapid data recovery by the administrator and end users by making the snapshot contents available on disk as read-only content. In this video, I will provide an overview of the available snapshot policies as well as taking manual snapshots to demonstrate the rapid data recovery capabilities when using FluidFS snapshots. FluidFS snapshots should not be confused with storage center replays, which are block-level snapshots and are not a supported data protection method with the FS8600. So we log into our FluidFS NAS manager, and the configuration for our snapshot policies is done under our data protection tab. So we click on data protection. We are taken automatically to our snapshot policy section. Snapshot policies are defined at the NAS volume level, so we need to first select our NAS volume, in this case demo vol 1. Also, it should be known that snapshots take up space within the NAS volume. So we want to set a percentage threshold at which our administrator is alerted when snapshots have consumed a certain percentage of the total volume space. We're going to set this to 75% for the purposes of our demo. As we scroll down, we can select granular policies that can start at a periodic level, where we can have them taken every several minutes, and we can see our options here in the drop-down menu. We then determine the number of snapshots to keep for our periodic policy. We can also set an hourly snapshot policy. We can have it set to occur every hour, and we can select some minutes after that hour if we desire. We can also select to have snapshots occur at specific hours throughout the day. And again, we set the number of snapshots to keep for our hourly policy. We also have daily snapshot policy options. We can have daily snapshots occur every day. We can set the time every day that this occurs. We can also select specific days and time on those days. And again, we select the number of snapshots to keep for our daily policy. And finally, we have a weekly snapshot policy option where we can select the day of the week in which a snapshot is taken, the time on that day, and again the number of snapshots to keep for our weekly policy. As you can see, there is a lot of granularity available in setting up snapshot policies with the FluidFS based FS8600. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to revert this because we're not going to set any policies for our demo. We're going to go ahead and take some manual snapshots to demonstrate the recoverability of data using snapshots. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my list item here on the left. Currently we do not have any snapshots. I'm going to go ahead and create a snapshot. But first, let's review our existing Linux system as an example to start with. As we can see, our mount point from our previous demo, we are in the FS86 user 1 NFS export share, and there is a hidden directory called .snapshots. Even when doing an all listing, we do not see the .snapshots directory. However, we can manually type out the directory and we can see that we are in here. Currently there are no snapshots taken, so there is no content within this snapshot directory. To expose this directory more easily, I can certainly use the ability of Linux and Unix symbolic links to create a symbolic link to our hidden directory. So if I created a link, for example, called snap, that would go directly to our snapshots, we can see that we are now able to browse into our snapshots directory as well. So I'm going to go back to our NAS manager, and I'm going to go ahead and create a manual snapshot of on our NAS volume. So I'm going to select our demo vol 1. I'm then going to assign a snapshot name, so we'll call it snap 1. Click on create, and we'll go out and create this snapshot. So now we have a snapshot called snap 1 of our demo vol NAS volume, and we have the time that this snapshot was taken and the approximate space that is allocated or is contained within this snapshot. Any new data written out to this volume will follow the redirect on write policy and will write out new blocks and file data, preserving this snapshot until we were to expire it. So now if we go back to our Linux client, we can now see within the contents of our .snapshots directory, we now have a directory called snap1. Within here, we can see the files that were retained and the data that was retained when we took our snapshot. I can do a listing of our test file, and we can see that it's populated with our initial data. I can go back up to my production directory. I can view my test file data, and I can say new data to add some new data. So now my test file 1 has new data, but if I needed to recover my previous file, I can simply, as my FS86 user 1 regular user, I can go into this directory and I could simply copy this test file back or copy it off to a new area, whatever I would need to do to recover my file. This is very straightforward and very similar to how snapshots are commonly used. I also want to demonstrate snapshots with a Windows client. There are some added integration with Windows with the Windows feature of previous versions. So again, if I go out to my share, this is now my CIFS share under my CIFS Data 1 SharePoint. It's using the same NAS volume, and as you can see, I do not see a .snapshots. It is a hidden directory. So if I were to type manually up here into my browser window, we can now see that I can navigate in, just like I can under my Linux client, into this snap 1, and I can see the contents of my test file 1. If I go back to my original production file, and again, like the Linux machine, or the Linux NFS instance, if I were to add some new data after snap 1 here, again, we would have a modified file with only those new changes taking new blocks. The previous blocks are being preserved. I can again go into my .snapshots, and if needed, I could recover the contents of my original file. And I could recover this by simply doing a copy paste and go back into my original production area. And of course, I can do a copy and replace, or following standard Windows options, I can do a copy but keep both, and it'll create a new file. You can see the new file has the old contents, the new file has the additional contents. If I were to take another snapshot, so if I had a policy and I'm taking snapshots over and over, my periodic or whatever my policy is for the rate at which I'm taking. So now let's take another one, and we'll call this one snap 2. We'll now see we have a snap 1 and snap 2 snapshot directories with just some minor changes, and only the changes since the last snap was taken need to be retained. So it is a very efficient use of our storage capacity. So if I go back to my Windows client here, now I have the option, if I were to right click on this file, we see now I have a restore previous versions option. If I go into properties and I look at my previous versions, I can see that I can look at another version of this file from another snap, and I can recover that file. Remember, my production current file has this additional data, but I can restore based on this file here my existing my previous file. And that So I can do this by either going into the .snapshots or use the previous versions option within Windows. If I were to make additional changes to this production file, we can see how we'll be able to see how we have additional file recovery options to choose from. So I'll go ahead and create another snapshot. And I'll go back to my Windows host here. And again, if I were to look at this file and look at my previous versions, I now have multiple files to pick from because of those multiple snapshots. So there are multiple ways within Windows that I can recover my data, either manually navigating into the .snapshots, or I can right-click and go into previous versions and recover that way. On the Unix side, our options are to go into the hidden .snapshot directory and copy our files back out. Now the FS8600 administrator has the option to do a volume level restore as well. So if we had some sort of major corruption or virus infection that was affecting our volume, or some reason where we needed to recover the entire volume, our administrator can go into the restore option here, select our volume, and from that volume select the available snapshots. When we do this, if we go back, for example, to snap 1, which is our oldest snapshot, so we're reverting back to our oldest point in time, we can go ahead and have this go. It's going to give me some warning information and tell me that there would be some changes, and I may have to remount my NFS mounts and my CIFS clients. So I can then decide if I need to proceed. And since this is a volume level restore, this does restore the entire volume to this state. So under extreme circumstances, this may be an option, but in many cases, simply recovering individual files is probably sufficient for what is needed. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm not going to restore the entire volume. So this demo just gives an idea of some of the snapshot policy capabilities, as well as demoing how a regular user can go in and recover files using the built-in snapshot capabilities. Thank you.